The Seventh Hokage stained his own hands with the most cursed technique in the ninja world, while Konoha burned to ashes. Imagine having to break humanity's greatest taboo and defile the soul of the one who gave his life to save yours in the past, just to put him on the front lines against an army of starving, gigantic beasts devouring your family's future right before your wide-open eyes. For you to understand how this nightmare started, we need to rewind just a few hours. When the sky turned sickeningly dark and the roots of the new divine trees burst from the ground, shattering the village's protective walls and bringing forth the Shinju monsters that completely ignored any ninjutsu Naruto threw at them to protect the civilians. Despair completely took over the battlefield when the village's hero realized that brute force did absolutely nothing against abominations, with no visible weak spots, forcing him to squeeze out every single drop of his chakra to create shadow clones dozens of times past his limit, bleeding from his lips while trying not to lose it all. The situation got so desperate that Hinata herself jumped in front of a lethal attack to shield Boruto and Himawari, getting blasted into the rubble with a violence that made Naruto's heart stop for a split second, making him realize that the will of fire wouldn't be enough to beat this relentless threat. It was exactly in this moment of agonizing pain and absolute lack of options that the Hokage's mind made an unforgivable decision, remembering the only shinobi in history who possessed the perfect clairvoyance needed to spot the microscopic, hidden chakra cores pulsing inside those terrifying beasts. Going against every single one of his moral principles, Naruto wove the forbidden signs of the Edo Tensei right in the middle of the ruined street, sacrificing the matter of a defeated enemy to summon the dark coffin that would make the entire world tremble. Feeling the weight of his sin crushing his lungs while the wooden lid creaked, paving the way for the impossible. The air instantly grew heavy when the dust settled, and the figure with pale eyes and long brown hair stepped onto the blood-soaked ground, looking around with a chilling calmness as he processed the chaos of the living world, realizing right away that the loudmouth kid he saved in the Fourth War was now wearing the Hokage cloak. Without needing any long-winded explanations, the genius of the Hyuga clan activated his Byakugan with brutal intensity, seeing in a fraction of a second his best friend's wounded wife and the two nephews he never even met fighting for their lives against bestial creatures that would make the original Ten Tails look like a joke. Can you feel the chills running down your spine, noticing that Neji didn't show a single ounce of resentment for having his rest interrupted? Unleashing an aura of pure protective instinct aimed solely at saving that family, immediately taking tactical command of the situation with a firm voice that echoed across the field and silenced the monsters. But what truly left the Seventh Hokage completely floored wasn't the coldness of his revived old friend, but the terrifying order the genius gave to his two young nephews, revealing that the only way to survive that massacre would require Boruto and Himawari to pay a painful, unimaginable price right after. The air around the family turned absolutely frozen when Neji demanded that Boruto and Himawari forget everything they learned about mercy and throw away their physical safety, explaining that the only way to destroy those immortal beasts would require both of them to overload their own bodies way past the limit any normal human could handle. For you to get a grasp of the absolute insanity about to unfold under that dark sky, the Hyuga genius revealed that the two would need to execute the legendary Rotation of the Void, an ancestral technique so devastating that it was banned by the clan elders themselves because it drains the user's life force if there is even the slightest slip in synchronization. Boruto didn't hesitate for a single second when he activated the dark, pulsing power of the Karma that spread across his arm in an intimidating way, while Himawari let the scorching red chakra of Kurama overflow from her innocent soul, showing her newly revived uncle that this new generation carried a silent fury ready to explode. The improvised training in the middle of that hellscape was the most brutal thing the ninja world had witnessed in decades, with Neji guiding every millimeter of his nephew's energy flow through his unforgiving Byakugan, correcting their stances under a rain of massive debris, while the Shinju monsters tried to tear down Konoha's protective barrier. You need to picture this spectacular scene where the golden and red chakra mixed with the black aura, creating a violent whirlwind right in the center of the shattered village, forcing the very laws of physics to step back as the rotation of the void started to take shape, tearing the stone ground apart, and sucking away all the oxygen in a display of pure spiritual pressure. But the tension reached an unbearable and chilling peak when Neji warned that the Hokage's barrier was finally giving out under the deafening impacts, telling them they would have only one shot at hitting the main beast's invisible core, demanding that the siblings close their eyes and trust purely in the surgical commands of their beloved, genius master. The relentless ticking clock of despair sped up when the biggest of all the Shinju monsters noticed the massive threat forming inside that deadly vortex of power, ignoring all surrounding distractions to gather an absurd amount of energy directly in its jaws, aiming a devastating blast right at the exact center where the two kids were trying to stabilize the technique. Naruto's blood ran completely cold as he saw with his own eyes that the creature's attack was way too fast to be blocked in time, realizing his kids were entirely exposed and totally immobile during that dangerous chakra concentration. pushing the 7th Hokage to take a desperate step forward even with his body completely torn apart. It was exactly in this millisecond of absolute, paralyzing horror that Neji's incomparable genius kicked in beautifully, because he had already predicted this aggressive, almost suicidal move from the giant monster, purposely choosing to use the kid's energy as a glowing bait to lure the monstrous beast right into the epicenter of the trap he had set. The entire landscape seemed to shift into an agonizing slow motion as the Shinju's colossal energy blast was fired, ripping through the atmosphere with a screeching sound, threatening to wipe out the entire Uzumaki family in a tragic, simple blink of an eye, until a dense, mysterious smoke revealed something that made even the immortal beast instinctively back away. It turns out the rotation of the void was never meant to be a direct, frontal attack against the strongest enemies walking the earth, but rather a highly painful secret key specifically designed to unlock the gates of a sealed power, forever destroying the blind spot of anyone who dared to touch the pure bloodline of the great Hyuga heirs. The monster's massive jaws were just inches away from crushing Boruto, when a solid blade of golden chakra silently emerged from Neji's own chest and pierced the void, freezing time on the battlefield, while the genius revealed a new, transcendent, and impossible physical form that would forever change the destiny of the ninja world. The blinding flash of that solid golden chakra blade swept across the battlefield like an unbearable heat wave, revealing that Neji's eyes had lost their ghostly paleness and were now burning with the intensity of two glowing stars, paralyzing the beast's savage charge just millimeters away from Boruto's body. For you to fully grasp the magnitude of this epic moment, just know that even the mighty 7th Hokage fell to his knees witnessing this impossible metamorphosis, realizing the Hyuga genius's soul had transcended the very limits of the Edo Tensei, instead of just being a resurrected puppet for war, rewriting the rules of life and death through the sheer force of his will to protect. The colossal beast roared in pure agony as it tried to back away from that purifying light burning its flesh made of pure divine tree, feeling for the very first time the absolute terror of facing a supreme predator who didn't even need to move a single muscle to dominate the space around him, since Neji's new Byakugan didn't just see the flow of energy, but controlled the very fabric of reality itself. I want you to pay close attention to Hinata's reaction, unable to hold back her tears of sheer shock as she noticed her cousin's majestic posture floating slightly above Konoha's shattered ground. Realizing he had finally broken the invisible cage that trapped his destiny since birth, turning the curse of the branch house seal into a crown of pure, brutal celestial power. In an act of terrifying and purely instinctive desperation, the Shinju completely ignored the two kids preparing the rotation of the void and launched dozens of lethal spikes straight at the exhausted Naruto's chest, trying to force the resurrected genius to commit the exact same tragic, painful sacrifice that took his life during the Fourth Great Ninja War. The whole time, this demonic monster calculated that human loyalty would be the greatest weakness of that family of heroes, betting all its chips on the absolute certainty that Neji would throw himself in front of the attack to act as a human shield once again, creating the perfect opening for the creature to finally devour the massive Nine-Tails chakra resting inside Himawari. But the real twist that left the battlefield in dead silence was the calm, victorious smile forming on the Hyuga's lips, because he didn't move a single inch to intercept those deadly spikes tearing through the air toward his beloved friend, proving once and for all to you and the whole world that his past sacrifice was a choice and no longer an obligation dictated by fate. Just the simple, overwhelming visual pressure radiating from Neji's new golden eyes was enough to disintegrate the spikes mid-air before they could even touch the Hokage's tattered clothes, turning the enemy's lethal offensive into glowing dust, while the genius softly pointed his fingers toward the massive, rooted body of the abomination that was now trembling in absolute fear. It was exactly in this moment of total domination that the master's true strategy revealed itself in all its glory and surgical cruelty, as the golden light pierced the monster's thick wooden armor and violently lit up a tiny, pulsing crack hidden right at the base of its thorny neck, exposing the only pathetic blind spot of that creature claiming to be an immortal goddess. The bloody stage was perfectly set, and the beast's fake sacrifice only sealed its own inescapable death sentence, because Boruto and Himawari finally reached the unbelievable synchronization their uncle demanded so much during those short, agonizing minutes of training in hell, merging the dark karma and Kurama's boiling chakra into a single devastating sphere of rotation. The combined power of the two siblings spun with such monstrous intensity that it began distorting the very light and gravity around the village's annihilated square, waiting only for the final command from the man who returned from the grave to turn all the Uzumaki family's accumulated pain into the most spectacular finishing blow ninja history has ever had the honor to record. But just as the two kids were about to unleash that annihilating vortex straight into the cornered beast's glowing core, Naruto's body suddenly convulsed violently, coughing up an alarming amount of dark blood onto the floor, revealing to you and everyone there that the true target of the Shinju's sneaky attack was never the Hokage's chest, but the resurrection seal holding Neji's golden soul to the living world. Despair once again choked everyone's throats when the wooden seal at Naruto's feet began to rot away rapidly, revealing that the monster possessed an evil intelligence sharp enough to infect the summoning chakra through its underground roots, forcing Neji's transcendent body to violently flicker like a flame about to be blown out by the wind right before the final strike could hit. For you to feel the heavy, dramatic weight of this terrifying moment, you have to realize that if the genius's soul returned to the realm of the dead in that exact split second, the rotation of the void would lose its spiritual anchor of stability and explode wildly, wiping out not only the abominable beast, but completely obliterating the two children fighting bravely to keep that apocalyptic whirlwind under control. Boruto felt the energy flow stagger brutally and tried desperately to absorb the shock of the disruption using all the dark power of his karma, while Himawari screamed in agony, feeling the fox's boiling chakra burn her own skin as she tried to make up for the absence of her uncle's Byakugan, creating a scenario of pure chaos where victory seemed to slip through the family's fingers in the cruelest way possible. But Neji's genius was always light years ahead of any physical threat that dared to challenge his brilliant intellect, and instead of panicking as his own existence faded away into thin air, he just smiled with the stunning serenity of a bird finally free from its cage, channeling whatever was left of his celestial power straight into the minds of the two young prodigies. An incredibly soft and powerful voice echoed inside Boruto and Himawari's heads, guiding their confused consciousness through that sudden darkness, teaching them in mere fractions of a second the true, absolute secret behind the perfect control of the Hyuga chakra, proving they didn't need their master's golden eyes to see the target when the very blood rushing through their veins carried the heritage of that great hero. Inspired by this final spark of wisdom and unconditional love, the two siblings opened their eyes simultaneously, revealing a mind-blowing fusion of their pure and wild auras, stabilizing the supreme technique's destructive whirlwind with a mathematical precision that gave everyone chills, making even the flaming ashes falling from the sky freeze mid-air out of sheer respect for that display of dominance. The Shinju monster let out a pathetic screech of terror, realizing its venomous plan had failed miserably and irreversibly, desperately trying to crawl away from the relentless fury of that united family. But the time for mercy was completely over, and the genius's nephews unleashed that annihilating vortex that crossed the battlefield at an utterly incalculable speed. The violent impact of the ancestral technique against the beast's only blind spot caused an explosion of biblical proportions that lit up the dark night as if the sun itself had come down to earth to purge the evil, instantly pulverizing the creature's vital core and turning its massive rooted body into a harmless shower of glowing dust swept away by the wind, taking all the curse of that war along with it. With the monstrous threat completely wiped from existence, and the ninja world finally breathing in total safety, Neji's paper and scale body began to dissolve with a poetic lightness that brought tears to everyone's eyes, allowing him to look deeply into Naruto and Hinata's eyes while proudly stating that the sacrifice of the past was worth every second of pain to guarantee this bright future. The caged bird's historical legacy stopped being a silent tragedy and became the life force now beating unshakably in the new generation's heart, and when the genius finally closed his eyes, handing his soul over to true and eternal peace, the whole village knew he would live forever through the bravery of his beloved nephews, wrapping up this majestic journey without leaving a single loose end behind. If you felt your heart racing with this epic story and want to support my work in creating original narratives just like this one, drop your like down below right now and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss absolutely anything. And remember, there's a crazy brand new video waiting for you on the channel with another jaw-dropping adventure, so click there to watch, and a big hug until next time.